Stars shining bright above you. Night breezes seem to whisper, I love you. Birds singing in the sycamore tree. Dream a little dream of me. Welcome kindreds, it's Jessica the Story Witch, and this is going to be a tag video started by Ashley and Julie. I'll link their channels down below. There are 30 questions in this tag. It's a Witchy getting to know you tag. The actual name of the tag is, what's your craft? What's your craft? There's 30 questions, so I'm going to try and get through them as quickly as possible so that it isn't kind of a really long video. I know I usually do make really long videos, but hopefully this one won't be. So let's get going. So number one is, how did you first know that you were a witch? I've talked about this before, I know, in other videos, but I can't remember a time when I didn't know. So I can remember when I was like a toddler and people would read those like Meg, Mog, and what's the cat called? No, Meg is the witch, Mog is the cat. Oh, Meg, Mog and Owl. Do you remember those books? They were really cool. And I'd be like, oh yeah, they're really cool, but that's not quite how I will do it when I'm a grown-up. So I already knew even then that I was a witch. And I think that's probably because I feel like I've done this in lots of past lives as well. So it's just something that I've always been, yeah, that's me. I know that's me. Number two, how long have you been practicing? It's hard to say because it depends on what your kind of definition of practicing is. I feel like I have been noticing and doing that kind of magical thinking about life and about how, and like self-improvement for a very long time. I think like technically I started doing more structured practicing and researching things like astrology and moon phases and stuff when I was about 13. So I'm going to be turning 40 this year, so I'll leave you guys to do the math. Question 3, what kind of witch are you? I don't love labels. Ashley talked about that a little bit in her video as well, but I generally refer to myself as a solitary eclectic witch, or just an eclectic witch. And then 4, what path or tradition do you follow? My own. I think that's the only one that we can really follow. We can obviously draw inspiration from traditions and things like that, but really each of us has our own unique path. 5, is your craft devotional or secular? How do you incorporate your faith into your craft if you do? Kind of like how Julie answered this question. For me, my craft, my practice is not a religion. I know for some people it is very much, and those two things are completely intertwined. But for me, this is more of a practice. It is it is a way of living my life. So in so much as you could say religion is kind of a way of living your life, then I guess it is. Those things do cross over for me as well. But I don't see it as like a religious path. I guess I feel kind of like those religious doctrines and things are something that is not really that compatible with being a witch, especially being a solitary and eclectic witch. I prefer to be able to be free and pursue the things that I'm interested in, which are calling to me. So I would not say I was religious. I'm definitely very spiritual in my practice. I do see my practice as being connected to source, but I see that kind of divinity as being inside us all and inside all of matter in the earth, rather than it being a kind of like external deity figure. Although I do sometimes work with external deity figures as kind of archetypes of a particular energy or something that I am wanting to work with. So it kind of depends. And I was very comfortable with working with deity as archetype, but in the Grumpy Witch tag video, I'll link a couple of these things down below. I know I've mentioned a couple of other videos already, so if you're interested, this might be all you want to know about my personal path, and you won't need to watch any of those other videos, but if you are interested, then you can go back and watch those as well. It's more like the broom closet one, the grumpy witch tag, things like that. When I was kind of first starting my channel at the end of last year, I talked a little bit about how I got here and why I'm making videos and stuff. And I'll be less croaky in those videos too as well, because I won't be getting over a cold as I am at the moment. So yeah, so you might want to check those out. But basically, I was very comfortable working with deity as kind of archetype, because my understanding of it was that we were all kind of part of that divine source. But because as like individual humans, we can't kind of wrap our heads around the idea of that, because it is an infinite energy that is just so difficult for us to comprehend. And so we would break that down into individual deities, personified deities, to be able to work with that energy in different kind of archetypes and stuff. So that was fine. But now I am finding that perhaps there is more personified deity energy than I realised. I kind of feel like I am being called more by personified deity. But as yet, that is not a kind of, I don't have like a devotional practice to a specific deity or anything like that. I do, like I said, I see my craft as being separate from a religion as such, because yeah, it's separate. That was a long-winded one. I'm gonna have to try and speed up a little bit. So where am I? Okay, so are you a closeted witch or in the open? And if so, how do your friends or family feel about your path? So I made a whole video on this about being out of the broom closet. I've been doing kind of witchy stuff for a long time out in the open, like running circles and doing healing and teaching about various things. So I am out in the open. I haven't had kind of like conversations with my family specifically about it. I kind of feel like they're just kind of, I don't think they were very surprised because they know me, you know, and they know that that is where my interests have lain and who I am since a very young age. And I feel for me, witch is very much a kind of community role, you know, so it's part of what I do in the community. I do, you know, people can come to me for the things they need, you know, for if babies are being born, or if they need help with a certain ailment or something, you know, so I am out. And yeah, you can check out that video if you're more interested in my kind of broom closet story. Are you solitary or do you have a coven? I am solitary, like Cody said, and the idea of a coven, you know, is kind of like, I like to meet together with other people who are on this path, but I wouldn't really like to have to follow certain dogma, which I feel like could be the case if you were in a coven. Number 8, what is something you wish someone had told you or something you wish you knew when you first started? I don't think I have an answer for this question. I feel like the things that I've needed to know, I've uncovered as I've gone along, and that is as it should be. What resource was the most valuable for you beginning practice, and what about now? Stories are my most valuable resource. I am the story witch. And when I was a kid, I would just like can sort of inhale stories as much as I possibly could. And a lot of my magical practice is to do with storytelling and how that can kind of change our path and get us to places that we didn't think that we necessarily could go. And that would still be the same now. What was your first spell? Was it successful? Do you know, I can't actually remember what was my first spell. So I can't remember doing spells and them not working. Yeah, I don't know. It's a long time ago, and I feel like I'm not sure. When I first started, perhaps like doing a spell might have been a little bit different from how it definitely would be different from how I do things now. But it's one of those things, like, you know, I don't kind of go sky-clad naked and dance around in a circle or anything like that. So sometimes you can do spells without it being really like obvious that you're necessarily doing a spell. So I think I was spell working for a long time as a child. So I don't remember my first spell, or if it was successful, but I feel like generally my spells are successful, so hopefully it was. What do you do when you feel out of touch with your craft? Now, in the was it the Grumpy Witch tag? I think it was actually, in the Grumpy Witch tag video, I had like a whole list of things. And also Molly Roberts has got brilliant videos on this, on like what to do when you feel like you've kind of lost your way a little bit. But for me, the kind of main thing that I do when I am feeling disconnected is, well, there's two main things. Getting outside is really important for me, and reading and stories are really important, and they make me feel reconnected again. Have you ever doubted your faith or ability? That's a bit of a strange question for me, because no, I haven't. I've had moments where I've doubted myself in certain situations, but I've always felt like that at my core there is a lot more power and magic in me even than I can access at the moment. So I haven't doubted that this is what I'm supposed to be doing. Number 13, and these are really tinily printed, that's why I'm kind of like struggling to see them. What are some grounding techniques that you find work for you? Now, these are the same things generally that are the things that kind of reconnect me when I'm feeling disconnected, but the most grounding thing for me, the most easy thing, is just connecting with my breath. So, taking deep breaths and really breathing out, and sometimes some kind of like yogic breathing exercises I do as well. And the other kind of grounding thing is just like take your socks and shoes off and get outside, get grounded, touch the ground, literally ground. 14, what's your biggest pet peeve in the magical community? I don't know really. I found the community to be really supportive and interesting, and if it's not, then I just don't watch that person's videos. So I suppose one thing that does kind of peeve me, or it's like sometimes people expect somebody else to like completely take them under their wing and teach them everything, or that people kind of expect the community they want the community to do stuff for them rather than really, I suppose it's almost like it's an illusion of a community in a way. It's not an illusion, it is real, but it's not like being an apprentice, or something like that. It's a different kind of vibe. And I suppose what peeves me about it is when people kind of expect to just take, and they don't want to give anything back or interact. They kind of give their power and their responsibility away, and they want to be kind of spoon fed, and I guess that kind of peeves me. There's also like kind of bickering sometimes between different people who think different stuff, but I think that's just, that is just life on the internet. So I think kind of, that's my answer. I'm trying to be quick, so I'm trying not to kind of get too deep into these things and ramble on about them. 15, what was your biggest spell disaster? I feel like if something doesn't manifest when you have been working on it, and I know I've talked about this before, I think in the Grumpy Witch tag as well, is that if something doesn't work, it's because I've either done it in the wrong way at the wrong time, or because that thing is just not the right thing. So I can't actually recall a disaster spell. No. Scratching my head. I'll move on. Number 16, what is your view on black magic? My view on black magic is that it's not actually a thing, just as white magic is not actually a thing. I feel like the kind of black-white magic binary that has been created is a product of our kind of patriarchal society setup, where we like things to be very much it's this or it's this, it's this or it's this. There's no kind of like options or multiple ways of seeing things. I think it's that kind of closed down thinking. So actually I don't feel like black magic, it's not so much that you when you're doing any sort of magic, for me, my magic is all very much about self-improvement or improvement for my community or for people who come to me for help. It is never about harming people. That's just the way that I like to do things. So that is kind of I want to raise things up. I want to make alchemy. I want to, you know, I'm on a quest for improvement, for raising that vibration. So doing things like hexing people or cursing people is not something that it doesn't sit right with me. But that doesn't mean that I think of that as black magic. You know, it's like, you know, it's something for movies and stuff. I don't think it's not a helpful way of thinking about magic. I think that it's more helpful to think about, what do I want to do? What are my personal aims, you know, and then going from there, rather than thinking, right, am I going to be a black magic practitioner or am I going to be a white witch? You know, it's a false construct. 17, is witchcraft an everyday thing or is it only for special occasions? See, I'm kind of reading these questions for the first time, and some of them I actually didn't do, so some of them I'm just like, oh, I didn't know that was going to be on here. So is it an everyday thing or is it for special occasions? It is 100% an everyday thing. It is part of how I live my life. It is not, you know, special occasions are also fun. But no, it's an everyday practice. And that my hashtag I started on Instagram about 5 years ago was everyday magic, because I do feel very much that everyday magic, as in we do magic every day, but also that magic is of the everyday. It's that kind of weaving of the mundane with the magical. And yeah, so that is how I see it. It's not just the big ritual ceremonies, it's the little tiny things you do every day which make the biggest difference actually in the long run, because like 365 small things is going to add up to a whole lot more than like 8 big things. So number 18 is, do you meditate? I do, although my practice in that also seems to be changing a little bit recently. I was using the Calm app to meditate. I'm looking into different methods of it now. The best thing that I find personally is drumming. I find that really kind of gets me into a really good sort of transcendental state straight away. I can hear my kids like playing in the hall in the background, so hopefully that's not too distracting. Number 19, and my croaky voice. It's like, why am I even doing this today? But I just thought, let's just do it and I can get it up because the questions are cool and I wanted to talk about them. So, do you practice divination? If so, what techniques? Yes, I do practice divination. Tarot is the main thing that I use, tarot cards, but I also use runes, pendulum, wax, basically anything that you can read. I'm really interested in divination. It's something that I've dived into quite a lot. I've got a video coming up about that actually, for the A to Z of modern witchcraft. The D in my alphabet is going to be for divination. I filmed the video, but I don't think it's up yet, so it should be up later on this month. Number 20, moon phases, planetary correspondences, days of the week, hour, irrelevant or key. I'm probably not going to be very popular saying this, but I actually do think that it is key. I think that if you try to work with certain energies when part of working magic is working in sync with the greater than us, with the rest of the planet, with the earth. So if you try and kind of exert your small personal will, however powerful that is, against what is happening in the kind of greater cosmos, it is going to just not work as well as you hoped. So even though I'm all for kind of substituting things in certain areas, and Ashley talks about this in her answer to the question, you know, like she was talking about it in terms of like candles and colours and ingredients and things like that. You can make substitutions for those sort of things in workings, and that's fine. You know, you are going to get a slightly different outcome depending on the kind of resonance of those things that you're using. But that is more like kind of changing the ingredients for a cake. You know, if you change the ingredients a little bit, it's still going to turn out fine. It might even turn out better. But if you change the ingredients loads, it's probably not going to come out like a cake. But for me, the bigger planetary things like the moon phases, it is as if you are kind of just not even putting that cake in the oven, you know. It's not going to work unless you do it with, if you work with the phases, you work with the energy, everything just flows so much more easily and is so much more effective, and it's a better use of your energy, and it also helps us to tune in with those energies. So it's a win-win all round to do that. So I think those are key. Number 21, spell language. Do you like to keep it simple? Do you dress it up? Is it poetry? Is it silent? All of them. Sometimes it depends on the situation. You know, if it's sometimes silent if I'm in public. I don't write rhyming poetry because I just find that really cheesy. And like when you get some of the books which have got like whole incantations for you to read out in rhyming couplets, and just makes me want to barf because it feels so fake to me. Like if it doesn't feel fake for you and you love it, then that's great, but to me it would just be wrong and it wouldn't work because it would feel really fake. Whereas I do like to write. That's what I love. I love words, I love stories, and so I do write things, but they have to feel honest and truthful to me, and that kind of like rhyming, it's just not for me. 22, do you keep a book of shadows or grimoire? I've done a video on this as well. I don't have a book of shadows or a grimoire. I have a bullet journal, and again, back to that kind of weaving of the mundane with the magical, I like to keep those kind of the magical things very much, you know. I have my new moon wishes right next to my shopping list. I don't see them as being separate and different, and like this year I've gone so much more creative in my bullet journal as well. I've gone much more, there's a lot more drawing and more visual aspects, which I think is just only enhancing that as well, and I'm really enjoying that. So some people would call it probably a book of shadows, but then you wouldn't expect to find like my daily to-do list in a book of shadows, so I don't call it that, and I don't call it a grimoire either. Laura Daligan's got a nice video about this as well, where she talks about keeping a magical journal. I'll link that down below as well. So yeah, I don't know. Why can't I just say no? I could get on with these questions. So I'm not doing too bad though. I'm already on number 23. Do you have an altar? Is it dedicated to any specific deity, season, or anything? Yes, I do have an altar. I actually have a few different altars for different things. I've got an ancestor altar, and I've got an altar which I change up for each moon cycle usually. Although sometimes I feel kind of called to change it earlier, and this month I've done that actually. I've changed it over. I've taken away the kind of the love, self-love and love altar which I had set up, and I've already changed it over to be more kind of like springy, spring equinox kind of vibe. Number 24, thoughts on the afterlife. How long have you got? I won't go massively into this because literally this could be another whole video, but I don't know for a fact obviously what happens when we die or what happened before we came here, but I had a really profound experience. Oh gosh, it's probably 15 years ago now. I went for hypnosis, and a wonderful therapist who was working with me, she was amazing, and she was chatting to me, and she's like saying, go back, you know, and doing this and this. And when she was like, right, where are you now? And I started describing where I was, and I was in the sea. It was just like, it was moving, we were so calm, you know, and it was just like gently sloshing back and forth, and I was aware of myself as being like a little droplet of water in the sea. So I wasn't my body, I was part of the sea, I was the sea, but I was just like a little droplet in the sea, and everybody else, you know, every other soul was also just in the sea, and we were just kind of just moving back and forth, you know, feeling connected and knowing that's where we are. And it was so peaceful and so relaxing, and that's what I feel like the kind of the waiting space is between lives. And I do feel like we have multiple lives as well. I've had experiences of past lives, and like I say, I know I've been a witch in many of my lives, if not all. So yeah, that's some thoughts on the afterlife. So 25, do or would you teach and practice witchcraft to your children? So I have 2 children. I've got a little boy who's 4 and my daughter is 8. And my daughter is very interested, and she would already consider herself to be a witch. She already would call herself a witch. She doesn't practice as such yet, but we do certain things together, like we, on the new moon and full moon rituals, I include her in part of that. There are still some things which I do not with her, and there are some things that we do all together as a whole family, and there are some things I like to do in the kind of wider community groups, and we've had some really nice community kind of celebrations as well where children have also been involved. So it would be impossible for me to hide it from her, because it is very much integrated into my day-to-day life, and probably my son will be interested as he gets older, or he may not, I don't know. But if I don't do it, you know, I make it clear to them that not everyone might be open and accepting of it as well, because I think I will definitely do some kind of like bringing up witchlings video at some point, because there's a lot to be said about this, and part of it is also their acceptance into society as well. I wouldn't want her to tell her friends maybe that she was a witch and then to get a hard time because of that. So I've spoken to her about those sort of things as well, but she really enjoys the kind of the connection with me, and also with that magic, you know. So she's already immersed. 26, do you have a totem animal? If so, what is it? Totem animal doesn't resonate for me because of the kind of Native American connotations, and I feel like that is, for me to have a totem animal would feel a bit culturally appropriative. But in my Celtic heritage, I live in Wales and ancestors are from here too. We would have had animals as part of we would have connected with animals as well. And for me, the animals that come to me and are kind of part, I work with animals quite a lot actually, but some come and then they go because they're there to kind of teach you something at a certain time, and then others are the ones that kind of stay with you. And the 2 that stay with me are fox and owl, and I have many foxes and owls around the house. Yeah, and the garden. And actually, now since we've moved into this house, I am going off on a tangent now slightly, but we moved here kind of a year and a bit ago, and we have owls now that you can hear in the night, and I love it so much. It's great. Although some people would say that's not a good sign, because they can be like portents of bad things, but not for me. They're always portents of good things. 27, what are some witch books that have influenced you? This should be another whole video as well. The books actually that I find the best are I quite like the history books, the ones like sort of Ronald Hutton, and I do like reading like the kind of older Wiccan stuff as well, like sort of Doreen Valiente and Gerald Gardner, even though I'm not Wiccan. A lot of the Wiccan stuff is really good because it's really thorough, and actually it's because people have been using these things for a long time. So there's not so much for kind of hedge witchery or solitary eclectic witching. Yeah, there's a lot. Probably storybooks as well, more so even, you know, the old myths and yeah, too many to be able to sort of talk about in a video. I've done some review videos, and I will definitely be talking more about kind of books that I like and stuff. And you know, as with all books, there's stuff that doesn't sit well with me, and probably in the earlier days, some of the Wiccan books I got, I kind of took more used stuff out of them without being quite so discerning, and now these days I'm a lot more like, yeah, that's bullshit, you know, or that is not going to work for me. So yeah, where are we? 28. Oof, flying. Tools, handmade only, natural materials only, I only need my will, anything works if I want to use it. Okay, so with tools, I'm not going to be or like you have to have exactly the right tools. I mean, obviously you do need certain tools to do certain jobs. So if like you're going to cut something, then a knife is a lot better than a spoon. But you can improvise more so than if you were trying to kind of work against those cosmic energies that, like I was talking about earlier on. So I am not at all sniffy about tools. Use what works. Use what actually works the best for it. I'm not a big one for kind of like ceremonial or kind of pointless tools because they aren't useful, I don't think. 29. Do you have a magical name? If I did, I wouldn't be telling YouTube. And 30, what are my favourite season, herb, crystal, rune, tarot card, symbols? Okay, so that's like a whole load of questions all in one question. So my favourite season, I love all the seasons. I love the way that the world, like everything turns, especially here in Wales. You know, you have very obvious seasons. The winter's very different from the spring, although it is spring supposedly at the moment, and we've had like the worst snow that we've had for many years. It's starting to clear now, but yeah, that didn't feel very spring-like. But I'm always like, I get to a season, I'm like, this is my favourite season, and then it comes to the next season, I'm like, oh no, this is my favourite season. So what I love is the change. I love that it's not the same all the time, and the different energy that comes with the different seasons. Favourite herb, again, that it depends on what I'm doing or what I want it for. So yeah, bay is probably my most used for the most different purposes. Although lavender also I use a lot. Basil I use a lot. Yeah, that's a tricky one. Favourite crystal? I think good old quartz would probably be my favourite. Lots of variations of it, so that's always handy. My favourite rune? I like the woman rune system of runes, as you will know if you watch this channel, because I bang on about them all the time. And if you haven't bought them yet, why not? Go and get them, they're amazing. But that system of runes is just so good to me, and I don't know if it's my favourite, but my rune for this year, the one that kind of is my numerological rune for this year, 21, is the egg, which is just like a black egg symbol, and it is very much about potential, about to be manifest. So that is a rune that I'm really loving at the moment. My favourite tarot card? That kind of depends on the deck and also how I'm feeling too. So at times my favourite card would be the Star, at other times it would be the Chariot. You know, it depends on what kind of energy I want at that present time, or I'm feeling at that present time. The Strength card is one that always resonates for me. That number 8 is my life path number, and so it is. So Strength is always a good choice for me. And when I'm choosing a deck, that's always a card that I want to look at first, because if that card is not something that I'm resonating with, then I won't be wanting that deck. And my favourite symbol or sigil, again, that's something that I would not feel comfortable sharing. Sorry guys. There's definitely things that, you know, YouTube's amazing and you can tell people and help people so much, but it is not, there's certain things which are better kept private, especially if you want to keep the power of those things. You don't give the power away. by sharing it on the internet. So yes, there's certain things I feel not comfortable with sharing. So I hope that's not a bit of a downer to end the questions, and I don't know how long it's actually taken me to get through these. Hopefully not that long. I'll have a look now when I've turn the camera off. Thank you so much for watching, guys. If you want to do the tag, then check out Ashley and Julie's videos, and there's a list of the questions and things as well. I'll put all that in the drop down box. I'll try to remember to link all the videos that I've mentioned too. Thanks for sticking with me when I've been so croaky and, you know, just I don't know. I'm definitely rambling now, and I'm just going to add extra minutes to the video that I don't need. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Warmest blessings, and I will see you very soon.